Chapter 18 Red Flags. Principal Weems' office. Principal Weems sat behind her desk, her hands clasped together in front of her eyes sharp as she watched the exchange between Miss Thornhill and Adele. Miss Thornhill stood, visibly flustered and trying to hold her ground, while Adele was as calm and composed as ever, her arms crossed over her chest. Wednesday remained quiet, her back straight, not giving an inch. "That's ludicrous," Adele said, her voice as icy as ever. "How could plants wilt overnight?" "That's a stretch, Miss Thornhill. I'm sure you've overfertilized them. You know, human error. Happens to the best of us." Miss Thornhill opened her mouth to protest, but Adele continued, the sharpness of her tone growing. "And why would Wednesday want to kill your plants? Did you do something to provoke her again? Unless you have actual proof that my cousin was involved, I suggest you find another excuse for your own incompetence." Adele's gaze turned to Principal Weems, as if expecting the other woman to back her up. Principal Weems didn't move, her eyes flicking between the two women, clearly uncomfortable. She didn't like confrontation, but the facts were clear, Miss Thornhill didn't have any proof. "Miss Thornhill," Weems finally spoke, her voice firm but neutral. "Unless you can provide some evidence that Wednesday was involved in this, we're going to have to move on from this discussion. You'll have to figure out another explanation for the plant issue." Miss Thornhill hesitated, her lips pressed into a thin line. "I'll find out who did this, Principal. Mark my words, I'm not letting this go." "I would advise you to do so carefully, Miss Thornhill," Weems said, her voice softening ever so slightly, but the authority still evident. "But until you present proof, I expect you to drop the accusations." Adele's expression was one of cold superiority, but she gave Weems a nod of understanding. "Good. I trust this matter is closed for now." With that, Adele stood, gesturing for Wednesday to follow. "Let's go, Wednesday. We have more important matters to attend to." As they exited the office, Miss Thornhill still standing there, seething with frustration, Adele turned to Wednesday. Her expression softened ever so slightly as she began to lead her back down the hallway. But it didn't take long before her voice took on a sharper tone. Once they reached Adele's office, the door clicking shut behind them, Adele turned to Wednesday, her expression now far less friendly. "You better have a good reason for pulling that stunt, Wednesday. If you want to be a troublemaker, I suggest you do it carefully next time. We're already on thin ice with Principal Weems." Wednesday met her gaze, her usual composure unwavering. She didn't flinch, not even for a second. She'd expected this conversation, and she was ready for it. "I don't regret what I did," Wednesday replied flatly, her voice even and measured. "Miss Thornhill has been getting too close to Tyler. She's up to something, and I won't let her manipulate him or interfere with our lives." Adele's sharp eyes narrowed. "Tyler? What's this about Tyler?" Wednesday's gaze faltered for only a moment, but it was enough for Adele to catch the shift. There was something there. Something Wednesday wasn't saying. "What did you see, Wednesday?" Adele pressed, the concern creeping into her voice, despite her efforts to keep it controlled. Wednesday crossed her arms, her posture stiff as ever. She hesitated only for a moment before speaking, her voice quieter now, almost reluctant. "At the Weathervane Cafe. I saw Miss Thornhill talking to Tyler. She was playing the concerned teacher, asking him how I was adjusting to being here, trying to get him to feel sorry for me. It didn't sit right with me," Wednesday admitted, her eyes not meeting Adele's. "And I don't trust her, Adele. She's been too involved in my life already. It's like she's trying to control things, and I won't let her." Adele's eyes darkened at the mention of Tyler's name, and a flicker of alarm crossed her face. "Miss Thornhill? She's playing a dangerous game, trying to use Tyler against you?" Adele's voice tightened with the growing realization. "What exactly did she say to him?" "Just that she's worried about me, how I'm adjusting, how hard it must be," Wednesday explained. "She's been pretending, Adele. I can tell. I don't trust her. And I don't like her trying to get close to Tyler, especially with how he's been acting." Adele's jaw tightened at the mention of Tyler's behavior. She'd noticed the changes in him too, the strange shifts, the way his mood seemed to spiral. But she wasn't sure if Wednesday knew the full extent of it. "Wednesday," Adele said slowly, her voice softer now but laced with concern, "you need to be careful. You know what's been going on with Tyler. Have you seen anything else? Has something happened? This isn't just about Miss Thornhill anymore. It's about him, and what's happening to him." Wednesday finally met her cousin's eyes, and for a brief moment, there was a flicker of vulnerability there, something she rarely allowed to show. Her gaze darkened, and she spoke in a quieter, more serious tone. "I've been having visions. Of Tyler. Of him turning into the height again." Wednesday's voice dropped to a whisper. "It's like I'm seeing him lose control. Over and over." Adele's expression shifted from concern to outright alarm. "What do you mean visions? Have you spoken to him about this?" "I can't," Wednesday said, the words coming out like a confession. "I don't know how to help him. I don't even understand it. I can see it, but I can't stop it. I can't get to him before it happens. And if Miss Thornhill is involved..." Wednesday trailed off, her hands fidgeting at her sides as she fought to suppress the unease rising inside her. Adele stepped closer, her tone now more sympathetic than it had been before. "You do understand, Wednesday. You've seen the signs, and you're not alone in this. We'll figure it out. Together." Wednesday's voice was tight as she spoke again, the words coming out like a quiet admission. "I don't want to lose him, Adele. Not again." Adele softened, her eyes full of understanding. She placed a hand on Wednesday's shoulder, her grip firm and supportive. "You won't lose him. We'll get to the bottom of this, I promise. But you have to stay calm. And you have to trust me when I say you can't do this alone. We have to work together, okay?" Wednesday looked up at her cousin, her face unreadable. But inside, a spark of reassurance flickered. She knew Adele was right. She couldn't do this alone, not with the danger Tyler was facing, not with Miss Thornhill's interference. But for the first time, Wednesday felt the weight of responsibility truly settle on her shoulders. She nodded once, her gaze steady. "I'll trust you. But I'm watching her closely. And I'm watching Tyler." Adele gave a small smile, one that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Good. Let's handle this. Together." And though the storm was far from over, for the first time, Wednesday felt like she might have someone on her side who could help her face it. The Weathervane Cafe, it was just after the lunch rush, and the quiet buzz of the cafe was soothing as Adele walked in. The warm, rustic smell of freshly ground coffee beans filled the air, but she wasn't here for the coffee, at least, not for herself. She had one mission in mind, getting answers from Tyler. Tyler, wearing his Weathervane apron, was behind the counter, steaming milk for a drink. His face was partially obscured by his unruly hair, but he looked up when he noticed Adele enter. His eyes softened in a way that suggested familiarity, but a flicker of tension remained. She walked over to the counter, where Tyler was preparing a latte. "Tyler," Adele said, her voice low but firm. She gave him a measured look, standing tall, arms crossed. He put the steaming milk down, slightly startled by the way Adele was looking at him. "Hey, Adele. What's up?" Adele didn't waste time with pleasantries. "I need to know what you discussed with Miss Thornhill," she said directly. Tyler blinked, clearly not expecting such a blunt approach. Well, nothing much. She just asked how I was doing. You know, small talk." He nervously wiped his hands on his apron, avoiding Adele's eyes. "She's just been kind of chatty lately." "I didn't think much of it." Adele studied him carefully, her eyes sharp with suspicion. "Tyler, Miss Thornhill has no reason to be concerned with you or Wednesday. She's not your mother, your aunt, or your sister. She's just a normie teacher at Nevermore, and she has no relation to you. She shouldn't be involved in your life. Do you understand that?" Tyler frowned at her, his expression uncertain but defensive. It's not like that, Adele. She's just being nice. Nothing wrong with that. Adele's gaze hardened as she leaned forward slightly. Tyler, listen to me, she said, her tone dropping, gaining gravity. If there's one thing I've learned in Washington, it's that people don't do things for free. They never do something unless there's something in it for them. She let the words linger in the air, letting them settle on him. Tyler looked uncomfortable, fidgeting with a towel in his hands as he glanced down at it. What are you trying to say, exactly? I'm saying she doesn't have your or Wednesday's best interests in mind. It's something I've seen before. Adele's voice was unwavering now, no longer soft, but piercing and direct. People like her, getting too close to kids like you, there's always an angle. You need to stop being so naive about it. Tyler shifted on his feet, clearly not happy about where this conversation was going. I don't think you're giving her enough credit, he muttered. She's just trying to be a good teacher, right? Adele's expression didn't soften. Tyler, I've seen cases like this my entire career. Grown adults trying to insert themselves into the lives of teenagers. And trust me when I say this, it's not usually for innocent reasons. You've got to understand that. Tyler frowned deeper, the irritation creeping into his voice. Okay, so what, you think she's out to get us? What would she want with me and Wednesday? Adele's eyes locked onto his, hard and unflinching. That's the question, isn't it? What does she want? I can't answer that for you, but I can tell you this, keep your distance, kid. I've dealt with enough cases where a grown adult's interest in a young person wasn't exactly appropriate. She leaned closer, her voice taking on a more dangerous tone. Pedophiles. People who prey on vulnerable kids. And they'll often use kindness and concern as a way to draw you in. Keep your guard up. Tyler's breath hitched, and his face turned pale at the bluntness of the statement. Wait, what are you saying? Are you accusing her of that? Adele's eyes hardened. I'm not accusing anyone, but I am warning you. Grown adults trying to get too cozy with kids? It's not normal. You can't just trust anyone who takes a sudden interest in your life. Especially not someone who has nothing to do with you, especially as a teacher. So I'm telling you again, keep your distance. Stay aware. Tyler remained silent for a moment, his hands shaking slightly as he set the towel down and wiped his hands again. But what if she really is just being nice, he said, almost as if trying to convince himself. Nice people don't get involved in things they shouldn't. And I don't like the way she's been behaving around you and Wednesday. If you think she's just being nice, you're either blind or being manipulated. Keep your eyes open. Adele's voice grew even more serious, dropping lower. You need to understand this. I don't care what kind of teacher she is. She doesn't have the right to meddle in your life. And I won't stand by and let her, or anyone else, hurt you or Wednesday. Tyler's face was unreadable now, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes, an unspoken understanding that maybe there was some truth to what Adele was saying. Still, he was reluctant to accept it entirely. I get it, Adele, Tyler said, his voice tight with a hint of uncertainty. But, how am I supposed to know for sure? What if I'm wrong about her? What if she's really just trying to help? Adele stood up straighter, looking down at him with a mixture of concern and finality. Trust your instincts. Trust me when I say that if something feels off, it probably is. And if you need help, if she doesn't back off, I'll handle it. You don't have to go through this alone. Tyler nodded slowly, his eyes reflecting the weight of what she was saying. Okay. I'll keep my distance. I'll keep an eye on things. Adele's gaze softened just a fraction, though her words were still stern. Good. Don't trust just anyone, Tyler. People have agendas, especially when it comes to people like you. And you need to protect yourself and Wednesday from whatever Thornhill might be plotting. Tyler watched as Adele turned to leave, her footsteps echoing slightly on the floor of the cafe. He felt a pang of uncertainty gnawing at him. He didn't want to believe that Miss Thornhill, who had always been nice, at least on the surface, could have any ulterior motives. But deep down, he knew Adele wouldn't be so adamant if she didn't have reason to be. He sighed heavily, staring down at the coffee cup in front of him. What is she really after? He wondered. For now, he could only keep his distance, as Adele had instructed. But the lingering doubt gnawed at him, and he knew the next time Miss Thornhill approached him, things wouldn't be the same. Like, comment, and subscribe to be notified for updates on this series.